She wakes before the sun even touches the sky, and there is a silence around her that feels both heavy and familiar. And she breathes in that silence, like it is the only thing that still listens to her pain. And she rises slowly from her bed, feeling the weight of a heart that has carried too much for far too long. And yet she stands, because standing is all she has ever known. Her name is not important, because this story belongs to every woman who has ever broken quietly and rebuilt herself without applause, and every woman who has carried the world in her hands, even while her own world was falling apart. And she moves toward the small window in her apartment and sees the faintest trace of morning light stretching across the horizon, like hope trying to wake up after a long storm. She places her hand on the cold glass and whispers to herself that she can do this again today, because she has to, because there are people waiting for her, and though they do not know her story, they will feel her strength in the way she speaks to them, the way she touches their hands, the way she looks into their eyes, like she can see the pain they are hiding. She dresses in her scrubs with slow, practiced movements, each piece of clothing like armor she must wear to face another day. And while she ties her hair, she closes her eyes for a moment, remembering a time when mornings felt lighter and laughter lived in every corner of her home. And she remembers her husband's voice soft and warm, and her little girl running into the room with sleepy eyes and tangled hair. And she remembers the way love used to live with them, not as a fragile memory, but as a living, breathing presence. But that life was taken from her in a single night when the phone rang and her world cracked open, and she discovered that the universe can sometimes be cruel without warning, and she lost the man who had been her partner, her friend, her anchor, and the grief that followed was not loud, but deep, silent, heavy, like a shadow that refused to leave her, and she became a mother and a widow in the same breath. Then, as if loss had not taken enough, her daughter fell ill with a sickness that drained the light out of the small child's eyes, and every day she prayed for a miracle while working endless shifts to pay for treatments and medicine. And she would sit beside her daughter's hospital bed, holding her tiny hand, whispering promises. She was too afraid to speak aloud, and every tear she shed alone because she did not want her daughter to see her breaking. But her daughter fought with a bravery that inspired her mother to keep going, and every morning the nurse inside her awakened with purpose to heal, to comfort, to save. And though her own heart was wounded, she stepped into her hospital each day like a warrior carrying invisible scars. As she walks down the familiar hospital hallway, the lights above flicker quietly, and she feels the echo of footsteps from the past days and nights she has spent here caring for strangers, holding hands of patients who had no one, remembering faces of people she tried to save, and voices of families she comforted when hope slipped away. And she continues forward with steady, determined steps, because healing is the only language she knows. She moves from room to room, greeting each patient with a gentle voice that carries softness long forgotten in her own life. And yet she gives it freely, without hesitation, because she knows pain, she knows fear, and she knows how lonely suffering can feel, and she refuses to let anyone suffer alone, not while she is here. There is an elderly woman who clings to her hand every morning and tells her that her smile feels like sunshine, and she listens quietly because compliments are something she no longer knows how to accept. Yet she gives her smile anyway because she knows the woman needs it. There is a young boy fighting a fever, and she sits beside him, telling him stories about stars and bravery until he finally sleeps, and she strokes his hair gently as if he were her own child, and her heart aches in a way she cannot describe, but she stays because this is what she is meant to do. There is a man who has lost hope, and she speaks to him for a long time, telling him that life is still holding a place for him, even if he cannot see it. And he looks at her with tired eyes and whispers, "Thank you," and that gratitude becomes a small, fragile gift she carries with her for the rest of the day. She continues her shift, moving like a quiet force, through every room, giving part of her heart to each person she meets. And though no one knows the full weight she carries, they feel her presence like light in a dark room, steady, warm, unwavering. During a short break, she steps outside into the cold air, leaning against the wall, letting the wind brush against her face, and she closes her eyes, breathing deeply. imagining her daughter's laughter, imagining the days when everything felt whole, and she wonders for a moment how she has managed to keep going without breaking into pieces. But she knows the answer because giving up has never been an option. Not when people depend on her, not when her daughter needs her, not when the memory of her husband gently pushes her forward. She returns inside, wiping away the remains of a tear, because tears are something she saves for nights when no one can see them, and she begins another round through the wards, checking vitals, adjusting blankets, giving comfort through simple touches and soft words, and the hours pass slowly like a quiet river, carrying her from one responsibility to the next. Late into the evening, the emergency alarm sounds, and she runs with a determination that rises from the deepest part of her soul. And there is a child struggling to breathe, and panic floods the room, but she steps in with calm, focused clarity, and her hands move with trained precision, and her voice calls out instructions, steady and sure. And for a moment, the world disappears, and only the child matters. Minutes stretch into something heavier than time, and everyone waits breathless, but she refuses to stop, and when the child finally takes a weak, trembling breath, the entire room exhales at once, and the mother of the child falls to her knees, crying, holding her hands and whispering, "You saved my baby, you are a miracle." And the nurse feels something inside her shift, something warm, something almost forgotten. She walks out of the room, her heartbeat still racing, and she leans against the hallway wall, letting out a long, quiet breath. And for the first time in months, she feels a small spark inside her. Not joy, not peace, but something like purpose, returning to her heart, one tiny piece at a time. Later that night, she visits her daughter, who is resting in her hospital room, and she sits quietly beside her, watching her chest rise and fall slowly, and she brushes the hair back from her forehead, whispering, "You are my reason. You are the strength inside my strength." And the child opens her eyes just enough to smile before drifting back to sleep. She stays there for a long time, her fingers intertwined with her daughter's small hand, and she realizes that every sacrifice, every tear, every sleepless night, every shift where she felt she had nothing left to give was all leading her to this moment, where hope returns softly, gently, like morning light after a long night. Weeks pass, and her daughter begins to recover, little by little, and color returns to her cheeks, and laughter returns to the room like a visitor who had been gone for too long, and she watches her daughter heal with a gratitude that fills her entire being. One afternoon, the hospital staff surprises her with a small gathering to honor her courage and her dedication, and they present her with an award, a simple plaque with her name engraved on it. And for a moment, she feels overwhelmed because she has spent so long believing she was invisible, and now she stands in the center of a room full of people who see her, who appreciate her, who recognize her strength, even when she could not recognize it herself. Her eyes fill with tears, not from sadness, but from the realization that she has been carrying a light inside her all along, a light dimmed by loss, but not destroyed. And as she looks around, she feels something opening inside her, like a door she had kept locked for too long, and she allows herself to breathe freely for the first time in years. Days become weeks, and weeks become months, and she continues her work with the same quiet devotion. But now there is a softness in her steps, a gentleness in her smile, a warmth in her voice that comes not from sorrow, but from a renewed sense of meaning. She wakes before sunrise each morning, stepping into the cool, quiet air, and she looks up at the sky, where colors of dawn stretch across the horizon like a promise, and she whispers a small prayer of gratitude for another day, another chance to heal, another chance to give, another chance to love. In the only way she knows how, her story is not about what she lost, but what she chose to become. Despite the loss, a woman who kept walking through darkness, carrying the hope of others. A woman who learned that healing does not always come from medicine. Sometimes it comes from love, sometimes from endurance, sometimes from the simple act of waking up and deciding to try again. She is every woman who has broken and rebuilt herself without applause. Every woman who has given her heart to the world, even when her own heart felt empty. Every woman who has carried pain like a shadow, but still walked into the light. Every woman who has fought battles in silence and emerged stronger than anyone could see. And so she continues her journey, not for recognition, not for reward, but because she knows somewhere in the hospital a patient will wake up afraid, and she will be the one to sit beside them and hold their hand and remind them they are not alone. She knows somewhere a life will need saving, and she will run without hesitation. She knows somewhere a small act of kindness will change someone's entire day, and she will give that kindness freely because she has learned that healing is not just a profession, it is her purpose. Every sunrise, she whispers the same words, "Thank you for another chance to heal." And she walks into the world with steady steps, carrying a quiet strength that inspires anyone lucky enough to cross her path. And though life once tried to break her, she rose again, not just for herself, but for everyone who needed her light. Because she is the nurse who never gave up even after losing everything. And her courage is a reminder that the human heart, though fragile, though wounded, though scarred, has the power to rise again and again and shine through every darkness. If this story touched your heart, if you felt even a little strength or hope waking inside you, then I ask you gently, please subscribe to our channel. Your one subscribe is not just a number, it is a small light for us, a reason to create another story, a reason to reach another soul who may need comfort today. If you want more stories like this, stories of real pain and real courage and real healing, then subscribe and turn on the notification bell so our voice, our message, and our hope can always find its way to you. Your support is a warm hand on our journey, guiding us forward, helping us bring more light to the world. Thank you from the deepest place in the heart.